Welcome to the Landscaping Podcast. My name is Joel Barnett and I'm your host. And today's episode, I'm talking with Tim Volant from Tim Volant Stonemason. Tim's a stonemason based in Melbourne. He's got a fascinating story, and it's another one where the importance of who you work for in the early days has a massive impact on who you work out to turn out to be. So he was going through some rough times, as he described in his early days, and he got given a chance by a fella to go across to New South Wales from South Australia, where he was. And that's helped shape him into the stonemason he is today. And it's fascinating seeing how much of a perfectionist he is and how hard he is on himself, and how much of a challenge that can be. And it's just the balance of wanting to do what's right and the perfect job, or the best job you can do, but also having to be able to understand that perfection can never be achieved. So it's fascinating talking to him about that. And even hearing the amount of thought that goes into his Instagram posts, working out the right lighting. So Tim's obviously a deep thinker, so it was a really enjoyable chat to have with him. So hopefully you enjoy this chat with Tim Volant. Tim, thank you very much for joining us on the Landscaping Podcast. My first question for you is, how did you start in the industry?
I suppose I would have been about 23, 24, and I was doing I started my horticulture certificate, and then I kind of fast tracked myself into doing landscaping with a designer. He knew I had a bit of an eye. And then I was about 3 years in, and then my adoptive dad, he passed away. And this was down in South Oz. And I was in a bad way, so I just took off. I heard there was work going on Kangaroo Island. Previous to that, a month before, I got fired by the designer. He just told me I had no discipline, which I took it on the chin, fair enough. Then a month after, my dad passed, adopted dad. So I went up to Kangaroo Island. It was 2007. They were building Southern Ocean Lodge. And I asked the builder just to give me any job that nobody wanted. There was a lot of guys over there working. And then I found out that the stonemason needed a hand. And so he had an apprentice. His name's Scott Wilson, local over there, and really good. So I did about a week with him, and then he pulled me aside with the builder, and he let me know that I didn't know what was going on. And another time, I took it on the chin, and I totally agreed, because I'd never picked up a stone in my life and laid it. As much as it was hard to hear, I knew it was true, and so I just went off doing more labouring. What was going on? Anything. And then a stonemason from New South Wales came down to give him a hand, and he had two guys with him. And I think within about 2 weeks, he sent his two guys back. They were quite new with him. He wasn't happy with them, so they were gone. And he needed someone to help him. He needed to get out of there in 2 weeks. So I put my hand up and just laboured for him. We did 12-hour days for that 2 weeks, 7 days. By the end of it, he knew my story, and so he was from the Central Coast, New South Wales. He offered me a job, and he was finding it hard to get workers up there, purely for the fact that everybody just wanted to surf. And I, like I said, he knew my story, so I said, "Look, I've got nothing going on down here. I'll say goodbye to my mates for a week, goodbye to my family for a week. I'll see you in 2 weeks." So I hit it, went up there, and I suppose I was up there for maybe 2.5 years, close to 3 years. And out of that time, I was shaping stone, I was mixing his mud, I was bringing his stone to him, but he wouldn't let me lay a stone. And I don't think I laid a stone for probably a good year at least. After that, we went to a few projects. It's all over Sydney, really. Central Coast, up to Coffs Harbour. Look, I even went up to Lord Howe Island for 3 months. So I got around, and then I moved to Melbourne. And so, I didn't know anybody. I just got any work I could at the time. And then I saw a company, so I sent them an email, had an interview, and I got work with them. And I suppose I was there. That would have been 2011, and then 2011, about 2014, I ended up quitting from the company, and then I went on to take over a job and started on my own. And so I've been doing that ever since. But I had a guy work with me for about 6 months on one project, just for the fact that it was heavy lifting. And apart from that, all of my work has been done solo. And so that's kind of where I'm at.
Did you find that you were loving it at a certain stage?
Look, I knew there was something there just for the fact that when I was up on the Central Coast and my boss at the time, he told me he said, look, when you get quick enough, you can lay stone. But that didn't happen. He said like when I did get quick enough, eventually, he said, I just want you to watch me. I want you to watch me. And a year of watching can really, really get to you. And it was cool, almost Karate Kid esque. And I just wanted, I felt like I was like at a bullet at the gates, and I just wanted to come out. I knew I could do it, but I'd never done it.
Mm.
And so that I think that taught me a lesson, taught me a lot of patience. And then after that, when it came to moving down to Melbourne, his wife said to me, "Look, Tim, I really hope that you continue with your stonework." She's like, "You've really got something, and Brad's put a lot of effort into you. So yeah, good luck." And that's what I did. But when it came to my first project, it was probably the hardest project I've ever done. The client was a jeweler, or he still is a jeweler. So he works to a hundredth of a mil. He he was telling me that he's a perfectionist. He's this. He's probably the hardest client I'll ever work with. And so a lot of probably about 80% of that project, each stone was customized to his liking. He was I remember he was in meetings in it was either West Oz or Japan, and in between meetings he was FaceTiming me, asking me to show him the stone. And then he was saying, look, if you could take about 10 mil off the top of here, I think it'll stretch the stone out, and blah, blah, blah. And I literally broke. I broke.
Nice
And
Christ.
yeah, yeah. But so that project, there's a lot of that project shaped me. There's a lot of nice curves in the stone, something I'll probably never ever do again. But that project is the project where I learned about balance, proportion, and just subtle shapes in stones. Yeah, and look, I did. There was a stage where I was thanking my boss from the Central Coast. I was thanking him for teaching me the trade. I wouldn't be this good if it wasn't for him. He said, no, it's something that you've got. And so now it's up to you to take it to the next stage. My first client, I was thanking him for teaching me about proportion, balance. And he sat me down, he had a big talk. He had to talk about his work. He had to talk about my work and what I'd done. And he said that it wasn't something he taught me, but it was something that he just released in me. He said I would have had that, but he released it in me. And so now I I've taken that to every single job I've done, sometimes on a manic level with my work, but all of my work, it's a lot of it's just a polar opposite to what's up here. And I get a lot of nice comments about my work, which I am quite proud of. But at the same time, it's a lot of people tell me that, oh, you must be so happy with the end product, the end result, the end result. Every single project that I do, I'm never happy with the end result. For me, it's the process, getting a stone, whether I'm making coins, shaping a stone, it's that process. It's that process. I get to the end of the project and I'm just picking it apart. Every day I'm at a project, I'll take a photo. Every set of traffic lights, I'm looking at the photo, zooming in, just going, that stone, that stone. And I can honestly say that with the work you see, it's with the comments I get, they're all quite nice. But stonework is the one discipline I have in my life. It's there's total discipline there, and so the clients do get what they want, and at the same time they do give me creative freedom. Yeah,
You get satisfaction when the client's happy with it?
I do, but when they're happy with it, most of the time I'm not happy with it. So I've got this conversation going on in my head thinking, are they just trying to pat my ego?
Yeah.
This and that. But unfortunately, not unfortunately, but look, a lot of clients don't see what I see.
Yeah.
I'm coming with my eye, which is different to your eye. It's different to the next stonemason's eye. But I've got this thing where I have to do it. Maybe it's OCD. I'm not too sure. I'm a big work in progress, but I have to do things to a certain level. Otherwise, I get the sleepless nights, and I get sleepless nights after projects, and I zoom in and I look at a certain stone. I'm like, damn, man, But I try not to let that happen, and that's part of the discipline. Yeah.
Yeah, I certainly understand what you're saying. Like I notice a lot of things, but I don't let them bother me. But like I did some stone cladding on a letterbox, and I did the stonework 14 years ago. But it's using that I think they call it alpine stone. So it was all kind of horizontal striations in the stone, and one of them I laid up the other way because it fit perfectly. So like a lot of people wouldn't even notice. Like a stonemason certainly would, but a lot of landscapers wouldn't notice. But I see that it's facing the wrong way, and yeah, so that's something I've always wondered how tough it'd be for a stonemason to look at other people's work, because I see certain things, and I'm a landscaper, so a stonemason would see a lot more errors with it.
Yeah, look, as a stonemason, I see a lot, and I suppose that maybe it's the last 4 or 5 years or so, I've really stepped back because, look, we are our worst critics, but when you look at other people's work and Instagram, like it's evil. It's evil. You see all these things come up, and you're like, I'm guilty of it. Everyone's guilty of it, and they're picking at this, picking at that, going, yeah, that's that, that's that. But I've come to the realization that I'm my only competition. I know there's other stonemasons, but it's up here. This is what I'm competing with. And I'm competing with my own perfections and imperfections on every job. I just want the next job to be better than the last job. But the last job is never the same stone as the next job. And so that's where the process kicks in. It's a totally different process. Keeps me fresh, and but it's hard. And look, no offense to landscapers at all, but since cladding has come in, stick on, lick and stick, whatever people want to call it, look, there still is an art to it. There's a total art to it. And at the start, my ego was through the roof, totally through the roof. That's not stonemasonry. That's that. You think you're a stonemason, blah, blah, blah. And like, I'll honestly say that I had cracks at people, and public cracks, and I probably look like a total idiot. But, I think since then I've grown. And like I said, there is an art to it, but a lot of people doing that cladding and have never done stonework, that's my little kind of niggle, because a lot of those people, they will call themselves stonemasons, but that cladding, that's just one aspect of stonemasonry. I do a bit of cladding, and I do rubble work. So I don't even do crazy paving. So I could probably say, like, I'm a building mason. I could probably say that I do two aspects of stonemasonry, and I just do dry jointed work. There's mortar behind my work, so they're not even classic dry stone walls. So that's a whole new realm as well.
So the
Something
classic
else
dry stone, is that without using mortar?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's, like I said, that's a whole new art in itself. And the guys that do that, I take my hat off to. It looks, to me, it looks beautiful.
Yeah.
And you see it all over Australia, dividing paddocks, feature walls in houses. Yeah, it's great.
I don't know if it's an old wives' tale, but were there a lot of convicts who were doing those walls that were dividing paddocks?
Do
They
you know
seem to
what?
be too nice for what
Yeah.
what I imagine convicts would do.
Look, I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure about that. I'm so bad with history, and I can honestly say that as well. But there was a lot of convicts that did a lot of the bluestone in Melbourne. I know that,
Yeah.
and there's markings in some of the stones if you go down the side streets, and so I'm honestly not too sure about the convicts doing the paddock walls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, what you're saying about the cladding, the stone cladding, I agree with you 1,000%. Like, because I can do that stuff, but I can't do what I call the real stonemason work, like using the dry stone look, using rubble, because that's just a whole different skill, like you say. So, I completely agree with what you're saying, and it's funny how, like, what you said is similar to what Cam Frieden said when it first came out. He wasn't a fan, but then he's kind of come around to it and seen that, like I say, it does take skill, but it's still it's not exactly the same.
No, but look, especially someone like Cam, he's got a lot of skin in the game. He's been around for a long time. So for something like that to come to him, for him to do that job, I could imagine his thoughts. His thoughts would be like 10 times crazier than mine. But I actually did a project in 2021 into 2022, and it was about 200 square meters. It was in Mount Martha, and I had the picture from the showroom, which the stones were quite strata, quite linear, then feature stones in the middle. The client gave me that. I said, okay, look, we'll sort this out. We'll work with that. I put the feature stones, laid them down. Another thing, balance, proportion. The walls are tall, so we couldn't have a wall pointing up like this. We had to stretch it out.
Yep.
Anyway, it was the first day. I started unloading the pallets, loaded a bit of stone, and I was stressing the whole time. I didn't, and again, this is my ego, pride was in the way. I didn't want to put any photos on Instagram. I thought it was below me. And then I did the first day, fine. Got to the second day, and I started pulling out triangles and different shapes. And I nearly had a heart attack because it was supposed to be strata pieces. And I was on the phone and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. But with a lot of time, I made it work. A lot of patience from the client. And look, they did pay for what it was worth, which I was grateful for. They got my standard of work. And when I say my standard of work, it doesn't matter if someone's in a $30 million house or a 1-bedroom unit. Like, I don't have a high workmanship, low workmanship.
Yeah.
People get a price and they get my standard. That's it.
Yeah, that's the good thing about the way you treat your work, is that you have to be happy with it yourself. So it doesn't matter what they pay, you're going to be doing the same quality of work regardless.
Yeah, and one of the hardest things, and what I learned on my first project, is that the client might not always be right, but they get what they want. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
So, but there's always room for negotiation. So
yeah, you can give me your point of view because you're the expert in it. But at the end of the day, it is their house. I find that I struggle to understand that with architects and landscape architects. They seem very controlling on what the client has to have. But
I've got one for you about a landscape architect. I was at a project and it was a Bangay design. Anyway, I'd never met Paul. My client had the design. We were doing it. Stone wasn't on the project, but my client wanted stone, so we added stone. One of the deliveries of stone, it was, what was it called? It's from Pyrenees, but the stone was actually from Avoca, and they call it Pat Rock. Anyway, they call it Pat Rock because it comes from this guy's paddock in Avoca, and his name is Pat. So they just call it Pat Rock. Anyway, we had a lot of small stone, and they were very long walls, so he didn't want it so it would look checkered. He wanted it drawn out, and so the next delivery we got were landscape rocks, and they were about 2.5 meters long by about 1.5 meters wide. And so I was cutting them up into lengths and pieces with my demo saw. First marking with my grinder, then cutting them with the demo saw, then pitching them so they had natural edges. So Paul came out. I was sitting down in the dirt, pitching up stones, and I got introduced. I said, "How you going?" He said, "Well, Tim, this has taken you a fair long time." And I just looked at him. And I said, "Yes, it is." And I just kept working. What I didn't go into is telling him that instead of having walling stones, what we had from the start, and just putting them in, I had to demo saw, I had to grind, I had to pitch. And so I just left it. But, going on this podcast saying that, I kind of feel good getting it off my chest. Because, and no offense to Paul. He was none the wiser.
I'm very, I've learnt it with experience, but I'm hesitant. Like when I leave a job and go back, like when my guy's been working there, I'll leave and then go back later on that day. And if I think they haven't done a lot, I won't say anything because I don't know what's happened. So there's, I trust the guys enough to know that they're good guys and good workers. So if they haven't got a lot done, there's a reason for it. It's not because they're sitting around doing nothing. So it's
100%.
There's no point saying anything.
No, but you do know when people have been sitting around.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
And with the way that you learnt, where you were talking about how you didn't lay a stone for a year and you were just watching everything, if you were ever to put someone on, would you teach them the same way, or would you get them laying sooner, or does it depend on who they are?
Look, I don't know. I think that's like I'm quite a social person, and I'm a visual person. Like numbers and letters are just like whatever. But when it comes to talking to somebody, you can get a gauge on what they're like. You get a feel of what they're like, especially on site as well. Someone will walk up to you and even they ask if you want a coffee, and you'd be like, "Yeah, that dude's green as." You can tell. So look, I'd love to put on an apprentice, and I've looked into it, but at the same time, it's just like for me to do that, it's that fear of failure that I have, and I'll start a project and I'll be walking around for 2 days with anxiety, just thinking to myself, how are you going to do this? I do that have a look at my work. Every project I've done the same. There's no way I can do this. How are you going to do it? But then it just takes over. You do. A lot of jobs, or most jobs, I feel like almost like I don't even have to try. I can just do it. It just gets done. And you're not thinking, like I'm a massive overthinker, but when I'm at work and actually working, I don't have to think about it because I can just do it. And that's the feeling part. That's I can think and go like that's not right, but in here you're looking at it and you can feel that it's not right. So it's like just take that out now and do it. I had one of my projects in Berwick, 2015, big arched entrance. did one of the arches on the side. It took me about 5 days. And then the next morning I got to site and I just ripped it all down. My client came out, what are you doing? What are you doing? I'm like, it's not right. It's not right. Then I put it back up in about 2 days. And there's people will look at it and there's a big chunk out of one of the stones. It looks like an imperfection, but that's what absolutely makes it. It's so yeah, he was happy in the end. Yeah.
So what percentage of your work would be quoted compared to, do you ever do any hourly rate work?
You know what? I don't think I've ever had an hourly rate job. I hear a lot of people, this is okay, this is a bit of a hot topic, I think. So ever since COVID, everybody's come out and a lot of people, whether they're stonemasons or not, they're doing stonework, but they're claiming stonemason prices because they're giving themselves that title. A lot of these people on hourly rates, and I've heard stories about people doing stick-on fireplaces. They're on an hourly rate. These fireplaces cost people like 15 grand, 10, 20 grand, stuff like that. I'm thinking that's maybe 5 grand. That's a 5 grand, and that's part of the discipline for me. I'm constantly shooting myself in the foot with prices because I haven't done the next project isn't the same as the last one. So it's a different stone, different process. I'm like, wow. And this is going back to the apprentice. This is where I still don't feel I'm ready to put on an apprentice. I don't know if I ever will, but I just feel like I don't know enough. That's just the way I feel. Yeah.
Well, I reckon you would definitely know enough, but you'd sort of need to be able to let go of things a bit to have an apprentice on as well. Because you've got to eventually, no matter how much they're watching you and how much you teach them, you've got to let them start doing things like laying stone as well.
Yeah, so 100%.
Yeah, I reckon that would be a struggle just chatting to you for half an hour, or because you've certainly got a lot of perfectionism about you, which is a good thing to have. But it does create its own challenges.
A lot of challenges. Yeah, so it's perfectionism, whatever. I struggle with the thought of like, is it perfectionism or is it straight up workmanship? I still haven't decided that. I don't know, and I don't think I'll ever know.
It's a good trait to have, though, like as long as it's not holding you back in any way. But it's good to be able to want to do better all the time. I think it is anyway. Because there's always room for improvement. It's hard with a trade like stonemason because it's not like they're square pavers where you can get them all on a line and all perfectly flat. There's so much variation in it, so it's hard to say like what someone else might think is perfection. You think is nowhere near it.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's right. But it is, what is it? Japanese wabi sabi. It's the imperfections that make it perfect.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I don't know if it was when I was talking to Cam, but we did a crazy paving job, and our joins are usually, maybe about 5 to 8 mil between the stone, and I wanted to do one really tight, like with I think they were 3 mil joins. So I had I told my guys I didn't care how long it takes, I just wanted it done like that. And it was only I think maybe 4 or 5 square meters, so it wasn't a big area. But then when it was done, they'd done it perfectly, but I didn't think it looked any good because it was all, like it was crazy paving, and it wasn't like they were all straightish lines. They were they were rounded and jagged lines, but because they were all exactly the same. I didn't think it looked any good.
But that's the only, and that's a learning thing,
Yeah.
Every project I push myself to do something to get out of my comfort zone that I think, is that right or isn't it? And it's not, I can build this part in the wall, but it's not until I've built this part all the way around it that I'm going to see if it does work.
Yep.
Every job I could, and it's not bad workmanship, but it's just my learning. Every job I've done something like that, and I could go to every job I've done and go, see that. But to normal people, you're not going to notice it, and it isn't a mistake. It's just learning.
Yeah.
Mm.
And like, not only is every job different, but like you said, you can get deliveries of the same stone, and the deliveries of the stone are different. It's like, how are you supposed to make all that look good as well?
Yeah. It's wild.
But the reason I was asking about how you would teach someone about laying the stones, because I've known other landscapers who they won't let their first year apprentices lay pavers in the first year, so they'll be just there passing the paver and putting mortar down, but they won't actually lay any. But I get my guys laying in the first week if we were doing paving, because I reckon the sooner they can do it, the better it is, and they're not going to learn much by watching me do it.
No, I totally get it. Like my boss up the coast, he had a fairly good financial backing. So he had the time, but he could see that I was keen, and he wanted to invest that time into me. He didn't expect me to move to Melbourne. But when I was back on Kangaroo Island, like I said, my adopted dad passed, blah blah blah. Over there, southwest corner, KI, they're probably some of the wildest times of my life. And I'm still gobsmacked that he offered me a project because he offered me a job because I was loose, you know, but I was still keen to learn. So he tried to snap it out of me, but yeah, I think that learning for me over there, you know, was a major catastrophe in our family, everything like that. I just took off, hit the path running, and I needed to concentrate. I put it all into that. And I think that's where I can still do that with, say, mental health, like whatever's going on up here, I can put it into that. And maybe that's where the perfectionist comes from. I'm not too sure, but it works for me, you know?
Yeah, it can go both ways. Burying yourself into a project if you're having thoughts that you're struggling to deal with, because you're either, it's good because you can focus on something and not have to worry about what your troubles are, or you could be, if you're doing something like stonemason work, you could just be there lost in your thoughts all the time and just constantly thinking about things. So it can go both ways, I reckon.
Well, I let you know, I'm normally driving an hour and a half each way from work. I'm by myself in the car, got my earbuds in. I'm listening to like death metal, punk rock, like listening to like podcasts and stuff. But then I'm at work that whole time by myself, listening to this, and so and that's been for 9 years, you know, and so it's been a wild time. So I know myself pretty well, but it's gnarly some days, you know. To like, I've got a friend that tells me, he's like, "Hey Timmy, where are your hands? Where are your feet?" He's like, "That's where your mind needs to be. Get it back, you know. Grab your hammer." Like, yeah. So I've got some good crew around me, you know. Like, yeah. So it's good.
Yeah. Do you keep in touch with the fellow from the Central Coast?
Yeah. And it's yeah, it's good. It's funny because he used to play in punk rock bands through like Europe and America back in the day. And then so when I met him on KI, we're just like reeling off bands, this band, that band, and we had a radio and it's just like rah. And then everyone else on site's listening to like, don't know, like Fox FM or Classic Gold or something. And yeah, so it was good, you know, it's good. But like I said, it was wild, and I'm surprised that he put me on. But I'm like really forever grateful for given the chance. So
yeah, it's amazing how many people I speak to on the podcast about how lucky they are with who they started working for in the early days, and how much that makes an impact on the business and person they become later on.
Yeah, it's a big thing. It's a big thing. Yeah.
So, what was the stone you were using on Kangaroo Island? Is there any there? Do they have?
Yeah, so they just a local limestone. They dig it up, and yeah, it was one of the largest walls in the Southern Hemisphere that they did. I worked on certain sections, and like I said, I did a week's work with Scott Wilson. Then I did 2 weeks with the other builder. But then apart from that, I was just labouring for like in between. But yeah, he was just digging it up, getting it dug up. He had a deal with another farmer, get trailerfuls for like cheap as, and we'd be chopping it up with axes, like big axes, big stones. But yeah, it's just the local limestone. Just like, say, those walls we mentioned, the dry stone walls separating paddocks, everything, they're just, I suppose, like whatever stone was locally, they use. Unfortunately for them, a lot down here was like basalt and bluestone, so it was a lot heavier than the old limestone.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But I don't think it looks as nice either. I like the limestone.
Yeah, limestone's good, easy on the body, and
bit easier to shape as well.
100%. You're just like a tomahawk.
Yeah.
Tomahawk, and that's it, really.
And what about in Central Coast? Were you doing a bit of sandstone when you're up there?
Yeah, we did. We did 2 sandstone projects down in Bondi, but then I was living at Copa in Avoca, and then just inland on the farm for a bit, and we were using it was like a grey limestone. It similar to the Harcourt granite, the salt and pepper look, but they would use this stone to crush up for roads. So we used that on a project, and then we used that on my boss's farm. On my days off on his farm, they were building a new house, so I'd be cutting down big trees and to make room for new paddocks for the horses for the adjustment. They got the miller in to mill all the timber, and then I was digging up just local limestone from the property. So their house that they built is quite sustainable. It's quite beautiful, actually. Yeah. Cool. So, but look, a lot of sandstone up there. Yeah, but we didn't really touch on the Gosford, really.
Yeah. Have you got a stone you like working with in Victoria?
Look, I've done some nice work with Mount Angus sandstone from out at Mafra. It's quite nice to use. It splits easy if you need to make windowsills, etc. But I think the old limestone's a bit of a favourite. Just apart from, limestone, I think. It doesn't really matter what limestone. You get some that are a bit harder than others, but it's on the whole, it's just easy on the body.
Yep. And so it was about 2011 or 14 you started doing the stonemason work, was it?
No, that was in Melbourne.
All right.
2011, I started labouring. But okay, I started labouring doing stonemasonry when I was 28. So I came into it late in the piece.
Yeah.
Now 44. So someone can do the maths on that. I don't have my iPhone calculator. Yeah.
So have you seen the tools change much in that time?
Not really. The only, apart from maybe the 9-inch demo saws, water powered, battery powered 9-inch demo saws.
Yep.
Apart from that, it's like the hand tools. You got your pitching tools, your punches, everything. They're going to be around forever. So, but someone like Cam would have seen it change through the years 100%. So, and fortunately, it's gotten better for him, really. Because apart from like I said, the pitching tools, there's no easy way around that. You gotta hit those stones, and but the good thing about them, you've got your favorite hammer. Through the years, you've got this muscle memory that you almost don't even have to. You don't even look where you're hitting. It's another thing that just takes over, and you can deliver some heavy blows. So,
yeah, I've been surprised myself. I kind of realize what I'm doing and freak myself out because I'll be watching where I'm hitting the stone, but not watching what I'm hitting on the end of the chisel. So yeah, because you just know where you're doing it. But I saw a video of Cam doing it, and he was like full on swinging and moving, and it was frightening to watch. So it's
no, He'd have 100% muscle memory, I think.
Yeah.
Just years of, and don't get me wrong, he'd still probably have the old slip. You know, I had a big slip in 2015. I probably shouldn't have even been working, but we're like at the time with my family, we were struggling a bit, and I was working in the rain. I was making coins, like getting ready for Monday, and my hammer just slipped off my pitching tool, hit my hand. Where I was in the mud, just kneeling down, I just rolled onto my side, and my hand was like this. And I phoned up my friend in South Oz. He's broken a lot of bones, and I asked him what a broken hand feels like, and I just got laughter. I'm like, dude, that's not like I was like, my hand's like this. He's like, no, you probably just like chipped the bone or something. He said, but that's probably worse than a break. I'm like, mate, you know. So, but it doesn't. It doesn't happen that often. But when it does happen, it keeps you honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, keeps you honest.
Yeah, I can feel the pain just thinking about it.
Yeah.
So do you ever do any work with other stonemasons, like we working together on a project?
No. Like I see a few stonemasons. They say that I've collaborated with this guy or that guy. One guy though that I have worked with, and I worked with a bit last year. His name's Trent Champion Stonemasonry, and he is one guy that I can trust as a person, almost as a brother, and 100% with his workmanship. He's not very big on the gram at all. He's moved out of town now with his family, but his style of work it's random, and I can work with him and do it, but I still can't get my head around how he does it. I just can't get around it, you know. And his capping, he's one guy I can honestly say that some of the best capping in Melbourne, easy. And I went down to help him down the coast last year, Drysdale, and he's like, oh, sorry, Timmy, but I'm going to throw you on the capping. I'm like, man, because capping's the worst. Because normally you're building a wall, and then you get to the capping, so you've warmed up, you know, and then you've got your kind of eye and everything and that. So he threw me straight on the capping, and nice, did the infills, beautiful. But with a lot of his capping on the edges and my infills with the shapes, we came together and gave these people something absolutely beautiful. So I just, hats off to Trensky, 100%.
Yeah, I imagine that'd be difficult as well for two stonemasons to work together, because like whether you're if you do like working on the same wall, whether you've got the same technique, so it's going to look the same, or like you might stand back and look at it and you can see the bits that you've done compared to what someone else has done.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting as well. I see, and look, that's how I got my first project. Because with the wall we're building, there was a lot of differences in the wall, and when two people are building a wall, a lot of the time they'll swap to this side to that side to marry it all in. And this is one thing that I've got on my side. And like I said, it's the discipline, and it's 100% up to me whether or what I deliver to the clients. But I can 99.9% promise the client they'll get 100% what they want, because there'll be no style change. If look, I've seen days where I can see the style change, but I've been stressed, and you can see the stress in the wall. So I was like up here, I'm just like, pack her up, boys, let's go. And so like I take off, you know, come back the next day, try again. But I see myself, I can see the stress in the wall. The clients might not, but I do, and it doesn't sit well with me.
So whereabouts do you get most of your work from?
Instagram.
Yeah, right.
Instagram. I've had, look, I do do my own kind of reels. I've do my own photos. I do all of that myself. So I've seen people take photos of my work, professional photographers, and there's one girl, professional photographer, that I've got my eye on to take photos, and I need to get back in contact with her eventually when I get my shit together to do a website. But she does some beautiful work with shadow work. But apart from that, the difference. And I think this is where Instagram's good, because I've got my page and I don't have a secretary or a content provider or whatever doing the work. I'm doing it from my hands, my eye. And so I'll be at projects and I'll walk past this wall and I'll see the sun and some shadow. So like right on the wall, like at 12:15, and then walk past again, like 1:00. And then 2:00 or something. And then those 3 hours through the week, it'll get condensed down to where the nice shadow is. And I'll get it down to probably 5 minutes at the end of the week. I'll be like, that's a perfect time. I'm just hoping there's a bit of cloud there or no cloud. And then I'm just like, bang, post. And it's, that's part of the way my mind works, the craziness, I suppose, obsessiveness. I'm not sure.
Even you're chasing perfection on your posting as well.
Yeah, but it's all my mind. It's shapes and colors. That's how it works. I'm just visual, and so talking to you on here, I'm super nervous. My hands are sweating. I keep drinking so much tea. But if I was to sit down and talk to you, say on that couch behind you in your room, face to face, I'd be making myself right at home. And I wouldn't be nervous.
No, you're not coming across nervous, so it's been fine. We haven't got too much longer left, so you've nearly made it.
Oh, good. Ask away then.
So was the jeweler right that he was the most difficult client you're ever going to have?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. But that just comes from his work. Like I said, he one of the best jewelers in the world. Late 90s, mid 90s, he won the De Beers Award. He's a pretty talented guy, pretty fussy guy, but there's a reason why his work is the way it is. And people call me like a fancy bricky, but I call him a fancy stonemason. So, but his stones are a lot more expensive than mine.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
So if he asked you to do some more work, would you do it?
Yeah, because it'd be a challenge,
Yeah.
And it'd be a process, and it would, be a challenge, because he would want to push me to another level, because he was one of the when he asked me to take on the project, I had a meeting with him and his wife, and I said, Tim, would you like to do this? Do you think you could do this? And I said, look, yeah, I think I can do it. He had his diary there. He just went, shut it. He's like, all right, get down the coast, get some stone, go find some stone. So I did that. So he's, him saying he believed in me. He's probably the first. That was 2014. He's probably the first person that I've ever heard say, Tim, I believe in you. And it was, it's really nice to hear.
Mm. And the last question for you, Tim, is who do you think would be a good guest to have on this podcast?
Good guest. Can I give you two?
Yeah, I got three last episode, so that's what.
Yeah. All right, I reckon Sam Twite down Gippsland way, and Stone Jackson. Yeah, Stone Jackson. Yeah, he'd be a good one. And there's another guy down at Castlemaine, Kaya, Synergy Stone. He's a bit underground, but he does some beautiful work.
Cool.
Yeah, all three of those guys do beautiful work.
Yeah, awesome. All right, yeah, because I loved chatting with Cam, and I've certainly enjoyed this conversation as well. So I do like having stonemasons on. That turns out. So yeah, looking forward to having more on. So yeah, can't thank you enough for coming on and taking the time, and yeah, really enjoyed chatting with you today. So thank you very much.
No worries. Thank you, man.